Hello everyone, Connor Whitmore. I'm back with another episode of Comparing the ID and the Final Tune, and today we're going to be looking at Right In by Skrillex. Did this with First of the Year not too long ago, and it was a lot of fun comparing and breaking down both the ID, the original version of that tune, and the final version, seeing the changes he made and which one worked better, making a kind of super version of the two put together. And I had some good suggestions in the comments of that video of other tunes I could do in that way, and I have settled with Right In for the next one. Felt like a good next place to go, an ID I was obsessed with back when I was listening to them a lot, and when I was a bit of an ID merchant, if you will. First heard it at a day festival in London, I think it was called LED, and yeah, load of big names playing, and Skrillex being one of them, who played it around 3 o'clock in the day, and he opened with this tune, if I remember right, and yeah, instantly I was taken aback, blown away, mesmerised even just by the alertness and energy of the track overall, and it went through some pretty important changes from that original version, which I heard in the summer of 2011, and when it came out at the very end of that year. A very underrated song, I think, in Skrill's discography, and the intro to, in my opinion, the best EP of the whole decade when we're talking about the 2010s in bass music. But yeah, how did it begin? What was the original version of it like? Well, we're about to find out. Same as the First of the Year video, gonna go through each section for both tunes and compare them, give a winner for each section or round, and then top them up, maybe make a kind of super version of the two combined, and probably by the end see which one is better, the original ID or the final tune, the completed version. Here we go. Starting, of course, with the introduction to the original ID. And before we get going, something to note here is that, of course, this ID is before the tune has come out in full, the final version, so the quality isn't as good, but that is another point of reference or an aspect that we can discuss in comparing them again. Also, I would have to say that the introduction and first build are entwined, and likewise the section following the first drop and the build following that before the second drop are also entwined, so I'm going to treat them as such as one section and not an intro and a build and, you know, the second time around, similar thing. Kicking off here, we have, yeah, that first section, the introduction and build as one in the original version of Right In by Skrillex. Here we go. Ideas-wise, pretty familiar. Okay, there we go. And now the introduction and first build of the final version. Here we go. Okay, there we go. So as you could hear there, the idea is exactly the same. The setup and structure of the introduction and first build pretty much stayed exactly the same from the original version to the finished version. The key differences, though, I would have to say, are, of course, the quality in the production. You can just hear that it's a bit fresher and more detailed and, yeah, just colourful all round, I think. But also, just as the build starts to ramp up, you can hear the claps and they're a bit more continuous and constant, and that just keeps that section kind of ticking along, gives it a bit more pace and ramps it up. Definitely an improvement on the original version where you could hear that the claps are a bit more static and broken up. They're like da 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 da, stuff like that. Not quite da 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 that, which, yeah, just keeps it ticking along and flowing in a much better way. So for that round, there's only one winner really for everything considered, and what I've mentioned here, it's going to have to be the final version for the introduction and first build. Okay, now moving on to the first drops, and I'm going to lead in here with just a couple of seconds of the build preceding them, just so that I can give a bit more flow leading in, and also to remember and celebrate that fantastic and iconic vocal sample, of course. So yeah, here we go with the original ID again. Okay, and now the final version. Okay. Again here, very similar, but also some very important differences between the two. So I think in the second half of the first drop, in each case, they're pretty much the same, save for the production being better in the final version, of course. But in the first half, I do think the original version just flows a little bit better. It goes do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. Whereas in the final version, it goes do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. Means that the original version keeps flowing and ticking along just that little bit better. So where the introduction flowed a little bit better for the final version, weirdly enough, for the first drop, I think for the original version, the music just flows a little bit better and has a bit more stream-like quality, if you will. And it's something I noticed as soon as I heard the final version for the first time. I was like, oh, that is a bit more stuttered, a bit more feeling like it's falling over itself and kind of tripping up. Whereas the original version, which I'd got so used to, was really kind of flowing and, yeah, as I said, stream-like. So not the easiest thing to spot, but it is there. And for that reason, I'm going to have to give that to the original version. So now 1-1 between the introduction and first drop. And moving on now. Then we have the first drop progression, which is a very important section in this tune as a continuation of the first drop. And again here, just going to lead in a couple of seconds into this section from the end of the first half of the first drop. Again here, kicking off with the original ID. Here we go. Okay, and now the final version. Okay, there we go. There are quite a few important differences here, as you could probably hear. Just gonna try and wrap my head around all of them. For one, the length is completely different from one to the other. In the original ID, it kicks off and frames a whole section around the diddle, whereas in the final version he went straight for so yeah, that's a whole section that he added in for the original version and then took out when it came to the final version. That high-pitched kind of squeal, I don't think I can imitate it. They are just a little bit different and definitely shows a kind of development on that front, I would have to say. Yeah, let's just give them both a play. Original version. Little bit of a stutter, little bit of a gap between or in that sound there. And the final version. Yeah, you see what I mean? Just again, that thing of flow and bit of production and it just ticking along and sticking together just that bit better. You know, you can hear it clearly. Blended, if you get me, and that is an important difference, I think. And then the final part, of course, where in the original version it goes and in the final version it goes and is produced so much cleaner, like you wouldn't even believe. So yeah, I think all things considered, taking all of that into account, I think again here I'm going to have to go with the final version. It's just a leveling up on what we got, is more concise and just flows better again, and better ideas. It just all sounds much more together, and gotta love it for that. Okay, no midsection here, so straight into the second build, and as you will hear here, pretty similar to the introduction and first build. And again, I just want you to listen out for the claps when the build just about starts to ramp up. Just listen to the claps in each one and what they do. So here we go, the second build in the original ID. Here we go. Okay, there we go. Now the final version. Okay, there we go. Hopefully there you can hear the difference in claps. So in the original version it goes da 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 da, whereas in the final version it goes da 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 and just flows in such a smooth and continuous way in comparison to that first version. But there is another important difference, a very important one at that. In the original ID, just before the second drop, there's a riser along with It's Another One, whereas in the final version, there's no riser. There's just It's Another One by itself, completely isolated, nothing else. So it very much kind of sticks out with nothing supporting it or backing it up. And we'll see the effect that has on the second drop in a sec, but I think I prefer it with the riser as a kind of anticipation and building up towards that second drop. Whilst I prefer the claps in the final version, I think I prefer having the riser just before the second drop in the original ID, which we will see how important it is and how much it changes the delivery and impact of that second drop. We will see in a sec, but for that reason, weighing that all up, I think it's a tie. I'm gonna have to give it to both. Okay, second drops leading in from the second builds. Here we go, original ID again to kick things off. Okay, there we go. And now the final version. As you could hear, pretty much the same ideas-wise from one to the other. But again, that fundamental difference of the lead into that second drop, and without the riser, I just find the final version so much more jarring. The mix down isn't as clean and doesn't flow as well, and that is where the original ID is better for me. Also, another difference is right at the end of the sequence. In the first version, it does the whole do-do-do, and in the final version it has this kind of electric flurry or moment or explosion of colour, which is beautiful and I love and prefer. Again, just gonna play them here. Original ID. Okay, and now the final version. Yeah, I mean, for me, personally, I just think that flows so much better and will transition in a much cleaner way into the second drop progression, which we're about to discuss. But overall here, whilst I do take that into account and the production is far cleaner and sharper, more colourful, whatever, in the final version, I cannot forgive that he took that riser out for the final version before the second drop heaviness kicks in. Yeah, it's always kind of stuck with me as something quite jarring and off, and I've never really gotten over it, the fact he took that riser out. I think I'm gonna have to give it to the original ID. It just flows so much better with that riser. And ultimately, the second drop progression. Here we go. Starting once more with the original ID. Here we go. Okay, and now the final version. Okay. Again here, a thing of structure where the original ID goes straight in with the da and the final version goes straight in with the do. So yeah, massive difference there, makes the original ID far longer, and yeah, just means that the final version is much more concise, and I love it for that. Also, I think the final version is just a bit more flavoursome, juicy, and just nicer on the ear, I think. But apart from that, you know, a couple other little changes here and there. I think in the final version, it's quite important also that at the end we get the digga 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 as opposed to which we get in the first drop, of course. So nice little change and development there. But no, I mean, all that considered, I think the second drop progression in the final version is far better. So yeah, wins that one, that round, that section by a landslide. Finally, the outros. And again, there are some important differences here. See if you can spot them. I'm sure you will be able to, they're quite obvious, but again, kicking off here with the original ID. Yeah, that's what it's called, but yeah, here we go. Okay. And now the final version. Okay, so the original ID sounds bare and also has a load of superfluous stuff at the end that just isn't needed at all. And the final version flows really well and is emphatic and powerful as a way to finish the tune, which is quite a short and concise and in-your-face one at that. Yeah, there's only one winner here. It's got to be the final version. But what an emphatic way to kick off an EP. I mean, really. So if we were to make a super version of Right In, then I think from the original ID, I would take the first half of the first drop and the first half of the second drop. And then from the final version, I would take the introduction and first build, the first drop progression, the second drop progression, and the outro, with the second build being a tie here. Once more, we have the final version with a couple of little touches from the ID. Yeah. Again here, a thing of if I'd heard the tune for the first time in its final form, I think I would love it more. But knowing of a couple of those original ideas and the changes he made, it does peg it back just a bit. Alterations that are very important, just like the ones on First of the Year. Moral of the story for me again here, don't listen to IDs. I regret doing it for so long. You get used to an idea and end up disappointed most times because, understandably, from the producer's point of view, they change it. But again, as always, if adjusting to changes doesn't bother you all that much, then all good, you're lucky. But be honest with yourself. But there we have it. If you want to see me cover other tracks in this way, then drop your suggestions down below. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you're new here, I do EP and album reviews, top 5s, top 10s, opinion pieces, and far more. All in the world of bass music, so dubstep, drum and bass house, trap, whatever. So if that interests you, then be sure to subscribe if you're yet to, and hit the notification bell along the way. My social media accounts are linked down below. And lastly, if it's naughty, then you know I will see all of you in the next one. And yeah, keep it naughty until then, guys. Peace out.